Hey guys, so I'm going to teach you a little bit about smoke firing today. And one thing that I just want to talk about first is obviously I have a potter's apron on and I have my hair up because I'm going to be dealing with fire, so I definitely don't want to have my long hair start on fire, so I'm going to put it back. I also would recommend taking off your jewelry so that you don't get caught up on anything. So I'm going to take my bracelet that was dangly off. That would be in addition to like ties or long sleeves. You definitely don't want to have things like your hoodie straps getting in the way of your smoke firing. So I've got a couple of examples here, and I will tell you this: smoke firing is actually going to work better on a smooth surface piece as opposed to on something that has the coils still showing. Now, you can build a coil piece that is smooth on the outside, or you could make one that leaves the coils show depending on what your design is. But if you do something with coils, you probably want to have a different glazing or finishing method. So again, I've got a couple of different smoke fired pieces, and it's a little bit more experimental than what other glazes are, because when you put these pieces, and I'm just going to turn them kind of slowly here for you to see, you can actually see it's different on the entire surface of the piece when it's finished. These pieces, these two actually, have been burnished. This one actually, I can even tell maybe the person hit it a little bit with the spoon to get kind of dense with the spoon instead of just leaving it burnished. But they smoke fired after, and then we're gonna show you ways to make that a little bit more permanent. When it's burnished, it kind of is more permanent the way that it is, but I'll show you how to actually make it more permanent on this one when we're finished. So here you can see what I was kind of talking about, where it's kind of too busy. This pinch pot had engobe on it, and it had this really interesting splatter pattern that the student did, but then they actually went and smoke fired it as well, and it only got really nice smoking on one area, and because it's not on the whole thing, it kind of disturbs the unity of the whole piece. Remember, we're trying to create unity on a piece where the colors and the design that you have really wrap around your whole art piece. So this one is not as good an example as, for example, this one, where really that smoking is the emphasis of your artwork, and you're actually really trying to show, like, the really, really beautiful part of this one is right in here. So we're kind of trying to find those little gems that happen as you smoke fire. So you're gonna pick whichever piece you wanna take along to smoke fire, and I have this sculptural piece versus this one that's kind of more smooth on the outside, so that you guys can see the difference. Now, as I said, you shouldn't do it on a coil pot. You might find that on a sculptural piece, it actually accentuates some of the sculpture parts that you have. And this one happens to be a portrait, but it might be a different sculptural piece that you're thinking of as well. So I'm gonna take these outside. As I'm getting ready for that, what I need in addition to preparing myself is I'm definitely gonna need kiln gloves. I also need newspaper or newsprint, depending on what you're doing. And the reason that I'm saying either of those is for this reason. When we are doing something that is just completely bisque fired piece and there's nothing else on it, it's okay to use the newspaper that has printing on it. But when you possibly smoke fire something that has a matte glaze, so here hopefully you can see if I turn this, it's really not very shiny. However, if I pick this piece up here, you can see that it's really shiny in the light when you look at it. It's not appropriate to do a smoke fire over the top of a shiny glaze because it'll just rub right off. It would actually probably stick to a matte glaze, but this one has multiple matte glazes on it already, and I'm not sure that this is necessarily the best choice for that. But we'll show you some other examples that have smoke firing over the top of a matte glaze and also smoke firing over the top of a sculptural piece, just so that you can see. So again, you're going to pick your pieces that you're going to smoke fire. You need the gloves, you need the newspaper, definitely need the lighter, and make sure that you have prepared yourself for safety, making sure that your hair is out of the way, no dangling objects, and then we're gonna go into the courtyard. All right, so we're outside, and I'm gonna show you how to smoke fire. Over on my right, I actually can see the trash can, and it's actually got a bunch of little holes in it, and that's actually so that the fire doesn't go out, so it's gonna allow that smoking to occur. And then I'm gonna open this up. So we actually put the lid on there for the same reason. We wanna keep the smoke in the work as we're going. I'm gonna set it down onto the side because really what I need to do is I'm gonna come over here. I brought my pieces out, and I actually also put my piece, a rock would work for this too, but I put my piece on here because I don't want the newspapers to just go flying in the air. So I'm gonna take one of these sections of newspaper, and you know, if you're doing this as a class, you could actually open this up and each one of you could take a sheet of newspaper and crumple it up. You don't want to crumple it really, really tightly. What you actually want to do is just kind of about like that is good, and then you're gonna like toss it into the garbage can in order for the smoking to occur. I'm gonna need to do a couple of these for mine because I've got 2 pieces. They're kind of large, so I'm gonna crumple a bunch of newspaper here in order to prepare for what I'm doing. I assume you're gonna just like speed it up, right?
Yep, you got it. They'll just think, wow, Miss Schmidt is so fast. Oh my God.
Speedy gun Schmidtness.
Did you just put your piece in there?
I put one of them in.
Oh, okay.
So I actually just put one of my pieces in. I've got a couple pieces of crumpled newspaper in there, and I'm gonna put a bunch more newspaper on top, and then I'm gonna put my other piece in. So it's really okay to have multiple pieces in the trash can at once, but you do have to be just gentle with them, especially if they've got a lot of detail, like that sculpture that you just saw, or if they've got really delicate parts. Goodness. So now that I have enough newspaper in there, and I will tell you this also, you might have to smoke more than one time to really get the look that you're going for. So if you don't get enough smoke the first time, you might actually want to go and smoke these again. But I'm going to actually take this lighter and I'm gonna light some of the newspaper on fire, and then I'm gonna actually take the lid of the trash can and I'm gonna put it over the top in order to keep that smoke inside the trash can. Uh-oh, if I can get it lit. We should go like this first. You do want to keep your arm obviously away from where it's lit, so I can feel the warmth of where I already lit this. And I want to make sure that I'm getting way onto the bottom. Once I feel like I've got enough fire going, I'm actually going to put the lid over the top. And you can see there's actually smoke coming out of those holes that I had talked about before. And it seems like it's still going over here, so I'm just gonna kind of keep my eye on it. But I'm gonna also warn you about this. This top lid right now is getting all the heat from inside this trash can. So it's really important not to touch this. I can actually, it's already starting to get really warm right here, and I was touching really fast and I could feel that. So my advice to you is to not touch this with bare hands. That's actually why we brought out these kiln gloves. So when this smoking is done, we're gonna use the kiln gloves in order to open the trash can and pull our pieces out. You can also wait until it's completely cool. Sometimes depending on, and I'm just gonna move out of the way here because I'm getting smoked out. But what'll happen is, sometimes if this is done at the end of the period, the instructor will leave the pieces in here and we'll get them out later, and we might not even need the kiln gloves. But right now I know the top of this trash can is really, really hot. So depending on when you take them out, you may need the gloves. One of the things you might want to do is make sure that the flame is really going. I actually had to relight my trash can here with my stuff in it, and I've got the flames going. Hopefully you can see them coming out of this trash can. And again, I'm just putting the lid over it so that it kind of smothers the flame, and you're gonna hopefully get some smoke coming out of this can while we're doing that. But it's really important for those papers to burn and to actually add the smoke to your piece. So this will go pretty fast with your pinch pots. When you have a larger piece, it might take a little bit more time to actually smoke. And one other thing I do need to warn you about, if you are out here and maybe doing this on your own after we've done it a couple of times in class, what you might want to do is you might want to check on things, but you do have to be careful, because when you introduce air back into this trash can, the flames are going to start building up again. So it's really important to be very careful there, because you don't want to get the flames in your face. So another thing that might happen when you open the trash can, and I'll try to make this happen for you, but hopefully you'll see, if you've ever been at a fire, you can actually see some of the ash going into the air. So just be aware of that as well. You don't want to get it in your eyes, or like, you know, it could actually have a little bit of an ember or spark to the fire still, so that could actually also get on you. So you just do need to be aware of what's going on as you're doing something that's more experimental like this. So as my piece, I can tell the flames are out. I'm gonna actually open this trash can, and I'm gonna start pulling my pieces out of the smoke firing area. So here you can see I've got some really nice smoking, and I'm just gonna blow off the ash a little bit so you can see. I can see I've got some really nice smoking going on, at least on this one side. However, the back side is kind of blank. So I might want to actually put this back in and smoke fire it again. But I want to actually see if what happened to my other pieces. So I'm going to pull those out first. But again, I would probably suggest re-smoking something that only has smoke on part of it. And this is what I was talking about. So, and I'm just gonna, again, I'm blowing the ash off of there. You could do it more up in the air so that the ash doesn't go in your face. Here you can see where the smoking got on one part of this sculpture, but again, it didn't really get on this bottom portion. So really what we're gonna wanna do is probably put both of these pieces back in, and we're gonna wanna try to get smoke in some of these other areas. And it might take 2 or 3 times to actually get the smoke where you want it to go. Another thing, another little trick that you can do, and I'm just gonna set this down as gently as possible so that I don't break it. And I'm gonna take my gloves off. And really, the reason I had my gloves on is, even though this was sitting for a bit, I wanted to make sure that I didn't burn my hands on these pieces, because they could still actually be kind of hot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this piece of newsprint, and I'm actually gonna roll it up, similar to how you would kind of build a fire. Sometimes when you make a fire, you'll take a piece of newspaper, and this is actually, some people refer to it as candling a piece of newspaper, because you're going to actually light this section on fire, and you can actually smoke areas. So if I have this on fire and I've got my glove on, and I would actually need both gloves, I don't have anything lit, so it's okay that I'm going to just keep this hand non-gloved for right now. But I'm going to pick this up, and it's still a little bit warm. I wouldn't actually need the glove, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't burn my hands, so I made sure that I put the glove on. But if I lit this piece, and obviously I only have 2 hands, so I might need a partner to help me do this, but I would light this piece of newsprint, and then you can actually hold it in different areas, and you can actually get more smoking on different areas. And I'm going to try to do that here in a moment, but I would suggest, if you have a piece that's larger like this one, that has a larger area that doesn't have any smoke on it at all, that you actually smoke it again. And this side was actually toward the bottom, so I'm going to want to put it back in the other direction in order to get more of that smoking on the top of this one. And I could put that back in the trash can, which I might do in a little bit. Okay, so before I do this, I'm going to, so you can see I have both my gloves on, and I've got my partner that's going to light my candle, my candle of newsprint. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna allow the smoke to go over the top of this. And hopefully what you're seeing is you can actually see some of the smoke is starting to get into some of those areas where it didn't have much of anything before. So it's actually really starting to get in some places, and I gotta be strategic about where I put this in order for the smoke to show up. So I'm just gonna kind of make this go around, and I also have to be aware of it so I'm putting this out, remember, stop, drop, and roll, right, from when we're little, and I just like put out the flame because it was getting too close to my gloved hand. So even though these are fire retardant gloves, they are not fireproof. Nothing is really fireproof. If you get anything hot enough, we can melt it, even stone. So hopefully that you're seeing here, you can see I got a little bit more smoking here. I probably should do that again on this area, the side area of the face, because it's really kind of giving this sculpture this like aged look. This guy is kind of old. He's got a tie. I don't know if he's a librarian or what's going on in the backside there, but like that smoking is really giving him that aged look. And so you might want to do that on some of your pieces, on some of your sculptural pieces. So one of the other things that you need to be aware of is if you are smoke firing something, you cannot put it back in the larger kilns. So if you wanted to like clear glaze over your engobe, that needs to be a separate process. What will happen if you try to clear glaze over the top of something you've smoke fired is when it's in the other kiln, all of the smoking will disappear. So it kind of defeats the purpose to try to put a clear glaze over the top. That's why we're going to show you some of these other finishing techniques in just a moment. So now that we've learned about some of the things or techniques of how to actually do the smoke firing, there's a couple of things that you need to know about finishing things. So for example, this piece has been burnished, and if you see that, you can hopefully, it's a little bit shiny, and it's because the person took a spoon or a cloth and they burnished this piece before it was fired. When it was leather hard, and that's why it's a little bit shiny, and then they smoke fired over the top of it. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually spray this in a little bit, and when we're in the spray booth, we actually wanna make sure that we have the vent on, and I'll also eventually put the can upside down to spray the rest of the material that's in here out of the nozzle so that the next person can use it. But I just want to show you like how to spray something. Part of the reason that I'm mentioning this, it wouldn't necessarily have to go on this one, but I am going to show you what happens on this one. But the reason that I'm doing that is if you smoke fired something that was matte glazed like this, you would want to put a matte clear spray over it. You could do shiny, but that kind of defeats the purpose of using the matte glaze. So if you wanted to smoke fire this, you could, and then you could actually use the matte spray to make that more permanent. Another thing that you can do with the smoke firing, and I'm gonna have to put gloves on because I'm gonna use this Johnson paste wax, and it is not good to get on our skin. It also has a fume to it, so realistically, when you're using this, you could use it over by the vented area away from other people because the smell might irritate some other students if that's what you're going to be doing. So I'm gonna put on my gloves because again, that paste wax is actually a little bit, it's got an odor to it, and I definitely don't want to get it on my hands. One of the other things that you want to do when you're using any kind of art medium, whatever it is, whether it's spray or it's a paste wax, you really should be reading the directions on the back because it will tell you if you should be wearing gloves or if you need a mask on, just because the fumes or the material itself could be harmful to you as a person. So you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself. So I'm just going to put these gloves on because I know that this wax is not something I want to get on my hands. And it takes a little bit of time to get those gloves on, but that's okay. So as I get those on, I'm just making sure that the glove goes all the way down into the ends of my fingers. I'm going to take this brush and I'm going to actually take a little bit of the wax. So I took the lid off, and when it's actually on, it's going to take you a little bit to get it off, and I'm not going to put it back on because it took me a while to get this off. But I'm going to just show you what the wax looks like. It's kind of like this brownish color. When it's brand new, it's actually a little bit more yellow. It's actually almost the color of the table. These are a little older, but it's still waxy. You can actually get it on the paintbrush. And then what you're going to want to do is I actually took this and I'm going to put the paste wax on one side of this. So I'm just going to brush this with a brush, and then once I get the paste wax on here, what I'm going to do after, and hopefully what you see is it makes the smoking more rich looking, because it's actually going to bring out all the colors that adhered into the porousness of this bisque fired piece, and you can actually see where there's different colors that happen from the smoking. I'm just going to let my brush be on the table for now. Then what I'm going to do is take a cloth, and I'm actually going to rub this paste wax in, and so what it does is it kind of keeps it more matte looking, or if you had it burnished, it would be still a little bit shiny, but it's actually going to bring out the colors that are in the smoking for you. So when you use the paste wax, it's important to have a piece of cloth. This is just a piece of cut off t-shirt, so it's like a 100% cotton t-shirt that was cut into a little square, and that I'm going to use to actually rub into I'm going to rub the paste wax into the pot with that, and I need that to actually like get rid of any brush marks that might have been left from my brushing the paste wax on there. One other thing that's important to note is that the reason I used this cotton cloth instead of a paper towel is the paper towel might actually scrape off some of the smoking that you have when the paste wax is on there. So you really want to make sure that it's something soft. That's why I actually used this cotton cloth to do my rubbing instead of a piece of paper towel. Another thing that you could do instead of using the paste wax, and I just want to cover this so that I'm not getting fumes and making myself not feel well. So I'm going to actually take on the other side. So this is the side I did the paste wax with, and over on this side I'm going to use a gloss medium. So there should be some gloss medium above the sinks for you. What you are going to have to do is you actually have to take the cap off, and you're going to pour a little bit of it into a palette. This one happens to be a paint palette that I got from the painting classroom, but there are probably some in here in the ceramics room for you as well. So I'm just going to take a different brush. So notice I have a different brush than what I used the paste wax with, because we do not want to contaminate the brushes either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look where I used the paste wax, and then on the other side, just because I'm testing this on something, you would not want to use multiple things to finish your piece on the smoke fired piece. I'm just kind of showing you the difference right now, so you really want to pick one of those. So I'm just going to take this gloss medium, and you can see it's actually, again, it's bringing out the color of the smoking, and you can actually see more of the browns that are coming in there. It kind of looks gray without the colorant on the side. So I'm just going to brush this on, and I want it really, really thin. Like, I don't want to take this gloss medium and leave a bunch on the side of my pot. I really want to make sure that I'm like brushing this in as much as I can so that I don't see the gloss medium. Really all I'm seeing is this really wonderful smoking that happened on the surface of my pot. So then I'm just going to let that dry, and what I'll do is I'll show you the difference between what those two look like once they're dry. And this one actually is still going to be shiny even when it's dry, because again, it's gloss medium. The paste wax actually is not going to be as shiny, and I'll show you that in a moment. But hopefully you notice I'm cleaning my brush out. I'm really tamping it down into the bottom of this bowl that has water in it, and you can actually see the water got a little bit cloudy because the gloss medium is coming out of the brush. You should really also go over to the sink and use a little bit of soap and get all of the gloss, and I can see there's still gloss medium in here, so as soon as we stop filming here, I'm going to actually go and wash my brush out. If you don't do that, the brush is completely ruined once this gloss medium is dry, because it's a permanent fixture. Okay, so I took one of my gloves off, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to actually show you this, and I want to point out a couple of things. So first of all, you can see where my gloss medium is. It's still really pretty shiny. It's not wet anymore, so it's going to stay shiny like that. But if I turn this, hopefully you'll see where it goes from shiny to kind of more of that gray, and then you should be also able to see where the line is where I actually added the paste wax, so you can really see a difference once the paste wax has been rubbed in. Also, once it's rubbed in and absorbed into the clay, now I can actually touch it with my hands. It's okay to touch then. It's just not okay to touch it when it's pasty and liquid, because there's some things in it that you shouldn't be getting on your skin. So I was going to show you how to use the matte spray. This is the spray booth. It's back in the kiln area. If you're going to use this, you really should talk to your instructor, because if the kilns are on, you should probably not be back here. They get very hot and you could burn yourself and get hurt. So what you'll notice about the spray booth is there's actually some, oh shoot, what are those called? There are actually some filters in here that prevent, like, it actually just captures some of anything, a particulate that's in the air, which is okay. And you'll see actually they'll move when I turn the vent on. Another thing that you should see in here, there's lots of different overspray that happens in here. So it might be a good idea to put a piece of paper down when you're working on this. I'm not going to right now because this is just a tiny little test piece. When you have a larger piece like one of your coil pots or your slab piece, or if you've got a wheel thrown piece that you're really trying to do something that maybe could go into Scholastic or some other contest, you really want to prevent anything else from getting on your work. So I'm just going to set this here, and then I'm going to turn the vent on and I'm going to spray. And remember, at the end when I'm done spraying this, what I'm going to actually do is put this can upside down, and I'm going to continue to let it spray to clear out the nozzle so that there's nothing left in here. If I don't do that, the next person that tries to use this probably won't be able to get anything to come out of the can. So I'm going to just turn the vent on, and I'm going to actually do it, and I'm not going to be talking while I'm doing it because it's really loud. So now what I'll need to do is, obviously this is wet right now. I'm gonna need to actually make sure that I let this sit here for about 10 minutes so that it's dry when I pick it up. Again, it's a matte spray, and I might have gone, like, I went around it a couple of times. I actually went a little bit too much right here because you can actually see the matte spray building up instead of having that really great smoke firing texture that we had talked about before. Hopefully that didn't happen all the way around. Otherwise, I'm going to have to figure out a way to fix what happened. And that is something that happens as artists, is sometimes we make a little accident. It's sort of a happy little accident, kind of like Bob Ross, right? And we have to kind of deal with what goes on. So another thing that you should realize, I turned the vent off so that I could show you some things, but realistically, we should leave this vent on for probably about 10 minutes too. So when you come back in 10 minutes, your piece will probably be dry, and then you can turn the vent off and take your piece with you and put it back in your space, put it in the display case, enter it in contest, possibly take it home. But again, we do display your works first, so just so that you're aware, that's what will happen.